and Nisabula. I'm here today to present on importation of queens that happened last year, and also on the queen breeding that happened on the island of Mokongai. Queen bee importation. The importation happened on 18th of May 2022 with the assistance of BEF through an IRA. A clean area in Western Australia was identified. The queen bee importation permit approved for Ministry of Agriculture was facilitated by Biosecurity Authority of Fiji and Dr. Rob Manning with ACR Beekeeping Project Coordinator Dr. Kumar and his team. 20 Italian strains were imported in total. 10 was for Ministry of Agriculture and 10 was for Fiji Beekeepers Association. One each had AI queens in it. And the cost for those queens were 4,691 in Australian dollars. Received by former Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Dr. Mahendra Reddy, at the Nadi International Airport at Bath office. So that's the team receiving the queens. Before the site was developed, consultation on remote site selection for import stock for quarantine purpose was carried out. Consultation on selection of remote site on an island was carried out by sending emails to the stakeholders and phone call discussions. And of course, thorough consultation was also done with the former Agriculture Officer, Mr. Kamal Prasad, and with the senior management of agriculture. And advice and recommendations were also taken or were considered from the veterinary officers of MOE and Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. Finally, Mokongai was selected. There were a few other islands that was nominated, but then Mokongai is a common place for quarantine, well known for quarantine, and you can see where Mokongai is situated on the map. It's just close to Koro, that is in between Koro and Ovalau. History of Mokongai Island, just briefly, let me explain why actually Mokongai is always chosen for quarantine. From 1906 until 1969, the island was a quarantine island that housed the Mokongai Leprosy Hospital. A lot of the old structures destroyed a couple of years back during TC Winston. Today, some of the houses are home to government fisheries officers and their families. Let us travel to Mokongai now. Site selection and establishment. This picture was taken just before, first time just before reaching the island. And that's the bay of the island, almost about to reach. And you can see the buildings there. That is the fisheries department with the research station and the government quarters. Now, upon reaching the island, the first activity that we carried out with the bee team and the biosecurity team, quarantine site was identified. So that was the initial site where we have identified to keep our imported stock on the island. And clearing of the site and commencing of fence work started. And that's how the team were carrying out the fence work. So basically, the fence line was cleared first and the fence was erected, and after that the spraying of the site happened. There was a big bush in that area with a lot of grasses, and after completing that work, the team has started constructing the hive stands. So hive stands were done, and further moving on, preparation of the boxes for packing bees, bee colonies with ventilation was done. This happened in Dombelubu, in the mainland, that's in Rakiriki, and the team were preparing the colonies for transfer to the island. So colonies transferred in traveling hive boxes for movement to Mokongai. Before that, prior to movement, biosecurity check. All colonies were well inspected thoroughly by BAF, especially on American foul brood and varroa mites. General inspection on other pests and diseases was also done with the team. IFB was absent. Varroa was treated until it was zero in the colonies. Then transferred to the island. That means when the bees were taken to the island, there was zero mites. So continuously more varroa tests were carried out to confirm the situation after transfer. All tests were negative. Just showing some pictures of how things were happening on the island with the team. And then once the clearance was given by biosecurity for the movement of the colonies that arrived on the shore, just a little bit in front of the shore, in the boat. It was a direct sail from Corvo to the island in a fishing boat. And then as soon as we offloaded all the colonies were taken to the shade under the trees, and site clearing again started. And that was the second visit. So the team, they started clearing out all the debris that were sprayed in the first trip. And this is how the stands and the hives or the colonies were established or installed. And then after installation, this particular notice was placed, remote queen breeding site, Makungai Island, which was some of the requirements from Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. And again, later, as the queens arrived, queens were introduced in the hives. So some of the processes shown on the slide, how the queens were introduced with our officers and biosecurity team. Queen acceptance. On the fourth day of introducing, queens were inspected in all the colonies, and all of those colonies had a good acceptance, except for one queen bee for Fiji Beekeepers Association was found dead, probably due to stress. Yes, probably due to stress because they traveled right from the Western Australia. So some more photos showing some other queens in the beehive. And as well as we found the fresh eggs on the fourth day after introducing. So that means those queens introduced, they started laying after they were well accepted by the bees. So after 90 days quarantine period, evolution of the stock were carried out for selective breeding, selecting traits of honeybees such as best colonies in producing higher honey, pest and disease resistant, docile colonies, which means non-aggressive bees. So these are some of the characteristics that was used for selecting the colonies for queen breeding. So apart from that, colony population, color, brood amount, brood pattern, brace combs, and swarm cells are some other points of consideration when it comes to queen bee breeding were taken into account. So just showing a few things there in terms of probably the hygiene test for the brood, productions, and the last picture on that corner shows how docile were those bees after almost 2 months of introducing the queens in the colony. And then grafting of queen larvae started. My team, they started with queen grafting. Queen cells were well accepted. The percentage of acceptance was more than 80%, between 80 to 90%. So that was my team. That's Mr. Ravnil and Naomi. We used the 4-way queen mating boxes as a concept to have many queens as possible, because Mokongai is quite far and we wanted to make most out of it. So those were the boxes, and 4-way queen mating boxes were in one super. It is divided into 4 sections, and each side will have a point of entry for flights for the queen bees, and 4 queen cells were placed in each, and we were able to catch maximum 3 to 4 queens in one super or in one box. But in certain hives, sometimes it's lower, maybe around 1 or maybe just 2. That's how the setup was for the 4-way queen mating box. Drone management was also very important, as you can see on the slide. Prior to receiving this imported stock or queens from Australia, our team has already introduced those green drone cells, drone frames for the development of the cells. so that it's ever ready when the queen has arrived and has been introduced into the beehive. And again, under drone management, on the next picture on the far side, is like we used the queen excluders to avoid unwanted drones to be working or to be engaged in mating or to be engaged in queen breeding. So drone management is very important. You need to consider for better queen breedings. Queen marking exercise were carried out for the F1 queens that was produced. So F1 queen bee, this is the F1 queen bee from Makongai, and these were introduced in the colonies at our research station. And now you can see the transition in bee colony, color and behavior. So that's how things changed. Locally we had the Dhaka bees. Can you see the difference? It's only the color at the moment. Probably we will see some more things in further ahead in slides. Queen difference, old versus new. Can you see or can you identify the old queen on the top portion of the slide? Okay, and can you see the difference for the new queen? Import stock and F1 queen bees distribution. So once these F1 queens were ready, after a month of more than a month of grafting, and then the queen hatching out and mated, and then started laying eggs, were caught. The catching of those queens happened and was supplied to the farmers together with the imported stock for Fiji Beekeepers Association. And then F1 distribution was given out as per division, like central. We managed to give it to one commercial beekeeper. So he received 2 F1. In the north, 2 queen bee breeders, they received 2 each F1s. And in the west, 5 queen breeders and 2 commercial beekeepers, they received 2 each F1s. So total of 10 beekeepers and 20 queens in total was given out. Old queen versus new queen evolution of performance. It was noticed during the peak of the rainfall season that F1 queens from Makongai performed better in terms of honey or nectar collection compared to the old stock that did not had much honey or nectar in the frames during the same season. And that was during the peak season, which was the month of February, higher amount of rainfall. So we have noticed that the difference. Queen bee breeding plan, Ministry of Agriculture has a core role for bee unit is to provide super bees or super queen bees or improved genetic materials to queen bee breeders in particular, and also to the commercial beekeepers. This will enable spread of new genetics from private queen breeding farms when multiplied. So our aim is to spread this new genetic material as much as possible, as many as possible, and as fast as possible. So with the help of these private queen bee breeders, we should make it possible as soon as or as quick as possible. PY line of imported genetic materials to be maintained on the remote island. So that is the plan. We want to maintain those PY line of F1s, PY line of genetic materials, so that more and more F1s can be produced and given out to the breeders. Safest from major pests and diseases at the moment. So Makongai is entirely free of major pests and diseases. Finally, this is my last slide. On behalf of the MOE team and the management and the entire honey industry of Fiji, I would like to say Vinaka Baka level to the Australian counterparts. ICR team working with Dr. Cooper for funding this project and making importation of queen bees possible. Also for initiating different research trials on grounds with plenty seminars and workshops. It was a very good learning experience, and we are expecting many more to come with our Australian counterparts. Thank you very much.